April 16, 1947, Texas City, Texas. 9:12 in the morning. The explosion was heard 150 miles away. It registered as an earthquake on a seismograph in Denver, Colorado. It killed every firefighter who had responded to what they thought was a ship fire. All 28 of them gone in a single second. And here is the part that should stop your heart. 66 years later, in 2013, in a small Texas town called West, volunteer firefighters responded to what appeared to be a routine fertilizer warehouse fire, and it happened again. This documentary is about what those firefighters didn't know and why, across 66 years, they were never told. Welcome to The Burning Oath, the channel that never flinches. Tonight we are covering two of the most catastrophic industrial disasters in American history, events that killed firefighters not because of anything they did wrong, but because of something they were never told. Ammonium nitrate, a compound that looks like white crystals, that is used by the hundreds of thousands of tons across America every year as fertilizer, that sits in warehouses in small towns, in cargo holds of ships beside schools and nursing homes. It is also, under the right conditions, one of the most destructive explosives on Earth. The firefighters who died in Texas City in 1947 didn't know. The firefighters who died in West Texas in 2013 didn't know. And the Chemical Safety Board, the federal agency that investigates industrial disasters, said directly in its official report that the lessons of Texas City 1947 had never been effectively disseminated to the firefighters who responded to West in 2013. 66 years, the same chemical, the same catastrophic outcome, the same fundamental failure. Firefighters sent into harm's way without the information they needed to survive. This is the explosion nobody saw coming, and if you are in the fire service, or you love someone who is, you need to watch this. Before we get to the explosions, we need you to understand what caused them, because the single most important factor in both Texas City and West Texas, the factor that killed hundreds of people across 7 decades, is a compound called ammonium nitrate. Ammonium nitrate is a nitrogen-rich compound that is one of the most widely used fertilizers in agricultural history. It is produced by the millions of tons annually. It is effective, affordable, and stable under normal storage conditions. It is also, and here is what firefighters in 1947 and 2013 did not fully understand, an extremely powerful explosive when exposed to heat, contamination, or confinement. By itself, ammonium nitrate is not particularly easy to detonate. It requires heat. It is dramatically sensitized by contamination with carbon, soot, fuel oil, organic material, and when it detonates in a confined space, the resulting explosion releases energy equivalent to, depending on the quantity, multiple tons of TNT. The 2,300 tons in Texas City produced an explosion that registered as an earthquake 1,200 miles away. The 40 to 60 tons in West Texas produced an explosion equivalent to 7.5 to 10 tons of TNT, enough to destroy buildings for blocks in every direction. This is not an obscure chemical. This is something stored in rural warehouses across America right now. Today, Texas City was not the first warning, and West Texas was not the last. In 1921, 26 years before Texas City, the town of Opau, Germany experienced an ammonium nitrate explosion that killed 561 people and injured 2,000. The entire world's industrial community received this information. The lesson was either not learned or not retained. In 1988, 41 years after Texas City, 6 Kansas City firefighters were killed when ammonium nitrate stored at a highway construction site exploded. The same compound, the same catastrophic result. In 2020, 7 years after West Texas, the port of Beirut, Lebanon, exploded when 2,750 tons of improperly stored ammonium nitrate detonated. 218 people killed, 7,000 injured. Visible from Cyprus, 150 miles away. Every major ammonium nitrate disaster in history has produced investigations, recommendations, and findings. What it has not consistently produced is the dissemination of those findings to the people who need the most, the firefighters who respond when these materials catch fire. The pattern is not complicated, it repeats. People die. An investigation finds what went wrong. The recommendations sit in a report. The firefighters of the next disaster are not told. Here is the specific thing that should make every firefighter watching this stop and pay attention. The CSB's investigation of West Texas found explicitly on the record that the volunteer firefighters who died on April 17, 2013, were not aware of the explosion hazard from the ammonium nitrate stored at West Fertilizer. Not aware, responding to a fire at a facility storing 40 to 60 tons of an explosive compound, and not aware that it was explosive. The OSHA last inspection of the West Fertilizer plant, 1985, 28 years before the explosion. The facility had more than 1,000 times the amount of ammonium nitrate that requires federal notification under the Homeland Security threshold. The Department of Homeland Security was not notified. The fire department that responded had no pre-incident plan for the facility, no hazmat protocol, no awareness of the specific contents. They responded, they advanced, they died within 20 minutes of arriving on scene. This is not a story about inadequate firefighters. This is a story about a regulatory system that failed them completely. Texas City, Texas, April 1947, a port town of approximately 16,000 people on the western shore of Galveston Bay, 10 miles north of Galveston. The port had expanded enormously during World War II. Chemical plants, oil refineries, grain elevators, warehouses, all crammed into an industrial zone that was separated from residential neighborhoods by a distance measurable in hundreds of yards. By 1947, the port was shipping ammonium nitrate, not the familiar agricultural kind that farmers had always used, but a new kind. The ammonium nitrate was being manufactured in former military ordnance plants in Nebraska and Iowa, plants that had been making ammunition components during the war and had been converted to fertilizer production. The ammonium nitrate was packaged in 100-pound paper bags and shipped by rail to Texas City, where it was loaded onto ships for export to war-torn Europe. There was one critical piece of information that virtually nobody in Texas City had. The Army's own manuals classified this compound as a high explosive. The Department of Agriculture's guidance said it was a non-dangerous fertilizer. These two pieces of contradictory information could not both be true, and on April 16, 1947, Texas City found out which one was right. April 16, 1947, Wednesday morning. The day dawned clear and cool, with a brisk north wind. Just before 8 a.m., longshoremen on the Grandcamp removed the hatch covers on Hold 4 to continue loading the final 600 tons of ammonium nitrate. Someone smelled smoke. A thin plume was rising from between the cargo and the ship's hull. The workers tried to extinguish the fire using a gallon jug of water and 2 fire extinguishers. The fire continued. Here is the decision that changed everything. The ship's captain, Henri Guillebon, did not want to ruin the cargo by using water. He ordered the hatches sealed and steam pumped into the hold, the standard shipboard method for smothering a fire. There is one catastrophic problem with using steam to fight a fire in an ammonium nitrate cargo hold. Steam does not smother ammonium nitrate fires. Steam heats the ammonium nitrate. It accelerates the decomposition, and as the ammonium nitrate heats, it releases nitrous oxide, an oxidizer, which feeds the fire. The captain had, with the best available firefighting knowledge of his day, made the worst possible decision for the specific material in his hold. At 8:37, a call went out for outside fire department assistance. The Texas City Volunteer Fire Department, 28 men, 4 apparatus, responded. As the Texas City firefighters worked the fire and the steam pumped into Hold 4, something remarkable happened. The smoke from the Grandcamp was changing color, orange, yellow, then a distinctive orange-brown, the color of nitrogen dioxide, a toxic gas produced by decomposing ammonium nitrate. The smoke was beautiful in a terrible way. It was the kind of smoke that made people stop and stare. A crowd had gathered at the head of the pier, approximately 500 people, many of them children who had ridden their bicycles to the dock to watch, sightseers, curious observers, parents and their kids, watching what looked like an unusual and dramatic fire. The firefighters were on the dock working their hoses. The ship's crew had disembarked. Captain Guillebon was on the pier taking a head count. At 9 a.m., the fire appeared to abate slightly. There was a moment, just a moment, of cautious optimism. Then the hatch on Hold 4 blew off from the pressure that had been building inside. A column of orange-black smoke billowed 2,000 feet into the morning air. And at 9:12 a.m., 1 hour and 12 minutes after the fire was first noticed, the SS Grandcamp detonated. Let us stop and say who died. All 28 members of the Texas City Volunteer Fire Department, men who had day jobs as workers in the port, as shop owners, as tradesmen, and who served their community on their own time as volunteer firefighters. Fire Chief Henry Baumgartner, he had led the department's response. He died at the dock with his men. Their apparatus, 4 fire engines, were destroyed in the explosion. The fire department of Texas City was wiped out in a single second. Every piece of equipment, every member. Also killed at the dock, 3 members of the Republic Oil Refinery Fire Brigade who had responded to assist, and hundreds of civilian workers, spectators, and passers-by. At the Monsanto Chemical Company plant, a football field's length from the explosion, 145 of the 450 workers on shift were killed. The plant was flattened instantly. The 15-foot wave of water thrust from the dock by the explosion's force swept across the waterfront, carrying dead and injured alike, back into the turning basin as it receded. Hot steel fragments from the Grandcamp's hull, some weighing several tons, showered down throughout the port and town for minutes, starting secondary fires in every direction. And then, when the fires were burning and the survivors were beginning to dig out, nobody thought about the ship in the next berth. Here is the part of the Texas City disaster that history doesn't talk about enough. The explosion of the Grandcamp was catastrophic, but the catastrophe was not over. In the berth adjacent to the Grandcamp sat the SS High Flyer. It had been docked for repairs. Its cargo, 961 tons of ammonium nitrate and 1,800 tons of sulfur. Sulfur sensitizes ammonium nitrate, making it dramatically more likely to detonate. The explosion of the Grandcamp had torn the High Flyer from its moorings and badly damaged the ship. Fires were burning on board. 2 men boarding the High Flyer in the afternoon spotted flames coming from one of the holds. They reported it. Hours passed. Nobody acted on the report with the urgency it required. The city was overwhelmed. The fires everywhere demanded attention. The High Flyer, a ship they knew was damaged, a ship they knew was carrying ammonium nitrate and sulfur, sat burning in the harbor as rescue operations continued around it. At 11 p.m., tugboat crews volunteered to attempt to tow the High Flyer away from the dock. They could not get the ship moving fast enough. At 1:10 a.m. on April 17th, 16 hours after the first explosion, the High Flyer detonated. The second explosion was so intense that pieces of the ship's hull, glowing red-hot, rained down across Texas City for minutes, starting new fires throughout the already shattered city. The total death toll, at least 581 people. The true number will never be known.
Your Honor,
Too
this
many
class
bodies
action
were never
represents
recovered.
8,485 plaintiffs seeking accountability for a disaster caused by regulatory...
Unprecedented.
Here is the thing that the fire service has to say plainly about Texas City. The firefighters of the Texas City Volunteer Fire Department did nothing wrong, nothing. They responded to a fire as trained. They advanced as they were supposed to. They positioned their apparatus as protocol demanded. What they were not told, because nobody told them, because nobody knew, because the regulatory guidance was contradictory, because there was no pre-incident plan, because nobody had done the hazard analysis, was that they were positioning their crew directly adjacent to 2,300 tons of a compound that the Army classified as a high explosive. Fire Chief Baumgartner, leading his crew that morning, had no way of knowing that the specific cargo in the Grandcamp's hold made a steam suppression attempt not just ineffective, but actively dangerous, that the steam was heating the ammonium nitrate, that the detonation was becoming more inevitable with every minute they waited. These men served their community faithfully. They showed up when called. They did the job. And the job killed them because the system around them, the regulatory system, the information system, the hazard communication system, had failed to give them what they needed to survive it. That is the story of Texas City, and it is the story of West Texas, 66 years later. The Texas City disaster produced legal, regulatory, and institutional responses at a scale the industrial world had not seen. Texas City drew the first class action lawsuit ever filed against the United States government under the Federal Tort Claims Act. 8,485 plaintiffs. The lawsuit established new legal principles about government liability for industrial disasters. The industrial mutual aid system that exists today, where refineries and chemical plants in the same area share resources and coordinate emergency response, was born directly from Texas City. The Industrial Mutual Aid System, or IMAS, was created in the Texas City area specifically because the disaster had shown what happened when isolated facilities faced catastrophic events alone. New standards were developed for the storage, handling, and shipping of ammonium nitrate, NFPA 49. O the standard for storage of ammonium nitrate, was developed and adopted in 1963 based directly on the Texas City disaster. The Occupational Safety and Health Act of 1970, OSHA, is a direct descendant of the reform movement that Texas City accelerated. These were real changes, important changes, the kind of changes that represented genuine improvement in industrial safety. They were also incomplete, and 66 years later, the incompleteness would cost 12 emergency responders their lives in a small Texas town. Between Texas City and West Texas, there was another warning that should have changed everything, and didn't. November 29, 1988, Kansas City, Missouri, early morning. 6 firefighters respond to a fire at a construction storage site on Interstate 71. Inside the site, a storage unit containing 25,000 pounds, about 12.5 tons, of ammonium nitrate that had been used for blasting through limestone during highway construction. The firefighters did not know the ammonium nitrate was there. No pre-incident plan, no hazard communication, no marking on the storage container that would have told them what they were approaching. The ammonium nitrate exploded. All 6 firefighters were killed. The investigation found the firefighters lacked information about the ammonium nitrate. The storage was inadequate. The regulatory requirements for marking and communication were insufficient. These are exact findings, documenting the exact failure that would happen again in West Texas 25 years later. The specific lesson that firefighters responding to fires near ammonium nitrate must know it is there was documented in 1988. Then it was filed, and the firefighters of West Texas responding in 2013 were not aware of the explosion hazard. West Texas, not West Texas, West Texas, a specific small city of approximately 2,800 people in McLennan County, about 20 miles north of Waco and 70 miles south of Dallas. West was established in 1892, a Czech-American farming community, the kind of small town that has a high school, a nursing home, an apartment complex, churches, a community center, the kind of place where everyone knows
The West
each
Fertilizer
other.
Company facility, the storage building,
West
the anhydrous
Fertilizer
ammonia
Company
tanks,
had
the grain
operated
bins, the
since
property layout.
1962,
Unremarkable looking.
more than
They cannot be
50
seen from the
years.
outside. 40 that could
It
be
was
in
a
any rural
familiar
community
part
in
of the
America.
community. It supplied ranchers and farmers with chemicals, anhydrous ammonia, fertilizer-grade ammonium nitrate, to help grow the corn, wheat, and hay crops of central Texas. What the community may not have fully understood, at the time of the explosion, the facility was storing between 40 and 60 tons of fertilizer-grade ammonium nitrate in a storage building on the property, plus 110,000 pounds of anhydrous ammonia in pressurized tanks. The middle school was within 500 feet of the facility. The high school was a quarter-mile away. An apartment complex was adjacent. A nursing home was nearby. The West Fertilizer Company had last been inspected by OSHA in 1985. The facility had not reported its ammonium nitrate inventory to the Department of Homeland Security, as required by law. A police officer on routine patrol smelled smoke on the evening of April 17, 2013. He contacted dispatch, and the volunteers were sent. At 7:29 p.m. on April 17, 2013, Citizens began reporting smoke from the West Fertilizer Company, the source of fire inside the seed and fertilizer storage building. The West Volunteer Fire Department responded with 2 pieces of apparatus. A police officer arrived first, recognized the severity of the fire, and began evacuating nearby residents from a basketball court and playground. First responders on scene saw flames shooting 40 to 50 feet into the air before any explosion occurred. The fire was already significant. There is something else that happened on this particular evening that speaks to what volunteer fire departments mean in small communities. 4 volunteer firefighters from neighboring departments, Abbott Fire Department and Mertens/Navarro Fire Department, happened to be in West Texas that evening attending an EMS class at the community center. When they heard the call, they responded, not to their own community, to someone else's. Jerry Chapman was one of them, a volunteer with Abbott Fire Department. He loaded his gear and went to help a town he didn't live in, to save people he didn't know. His father, Dane Chapman, described Jerry this way. To Jerry, that was life helping somebody else. He gave up his life for strangers, but that's who Jerry was. At 7:51 p.m., 22 minutes after the first call, the building detonated. The explosion at West Fertilizer was 2 detonations milliseconds apart. Eyewitnesses described a sharp crack followed immediately by a massive blast wave. Dashcam footage from a police car on Highway 35 captured the moment. The camera shakes violently. The image goes dark. The audio captures something between a sharp crack and an extended roar, the specific acoustic signature of a major ammonium nitrate detonation. The blast registered as a magnitude 2.1 earthquake on seismographs in the region. A crater, 93 feet wide and 10 feet deep, was left where the storage building had stood. The apartment complex adjacent to the facility, destroyed. The nursing home nearby, heavily damaged. The middle school, badly damaged. The high school, broken windows and structural damage. More than 150 buildings in the surrounding community, damaged or destroyed. The force of the explosion created a scene investigators later described as looking like a war zone, a block of West Texas simply gone. Foundations where buildings had been. A railway boxcar full of ammonium nitrate on its side a block away. The 10 emergency responders killed in the explosion were in the zone of maximum blast effect. They had been working the fire. They had no warning of the detonation. 2 civilians also died, a resident of the apartment complex and a resident of the nursing home. Total dead, 15 people, more than 260 injured. We are going to name the emergency responders who died in West Texas because they deserve to be named. Jerry Chapman, 34 years old, Abbott Volunteer Fire Department. He drove from his EMS class to help someone else's town.
So I can remain proud of what he did.
He gave up his life for strangers. But that's who Jerry was.
It's hard,
Joey
but we're proud.
Pustojovsky, 29
As
years
a father,
old,
I have
West
to ensure
Volunteer
the
Fire
victims are
Department.
properly honored.
His father Joe would spend years
Every
leading
stone
the
we
effort
lay
to build a
is a
proper
promise
memorial
kept.
for the victims. Cyrus
This
Reed,
is how we turn our
33 years
grief
old,
into
West
something
Volunteer
lasting.
Fire Department. Kevin Sanders, 52 years old, West Volunteer Fire Department, the oldest of the first responders killed. Morris Bridges, 41 years old, West Volunteer Fire Department. Perry Calvin, 26 years old, West Volunteer Fire Department, the youngest of the first responders killed. Robert Snockhouse, 51 years old, West Volunteer Fire Department. Cody Dragu, 50 years old, Mertens/Navarro Volunteer Fire Department. Douglas Snockhouse, 48 years old, Dallas Fire Rescue, and one more emergency responder whose name belongs with theirs. 3 others who were not firefighters, 2 residents of the apartment complex and the nursing home, killed in their homes by an explosion they had no warning was coming. These are the people who died because a regulatory system failed them, because a company did not safely store its chemicals, because the information that could have saved their lives was in a report somewhere that nobody required to reach them. The U.S. Chemical Safety Board, an independent federal agency that investigates industrial chemical accidents, spent 3 years investigating the West Fertilizer explosion. Its final report was released in January 2016. What the CSB found was not complicated, but it was damning. The West Fertilizer Company had failed to implement basic fire prevention and mitigation measures for the ammonium nitrate it stored. The building containing the ammonium nitrate had no automatic sprinkler system, a system that, if present, could plausibly have prevented the explosion. The building's construction did not meet NFPA 400 standards for hazardous material storage. The regulatory oversight of the facility was a system of gaps. OSHA last inspected in 1985. The EPA had the facility under its risk management program, but ammonium nitrate is specifically excluded from that program. The DHS had threshold requirements for notification, but the facility had not complied. The local fire department had no information about the facility's hazardous inventory. CSB chairperson Rafael More Eraso said the fire and explosion at West Fertilizer was preventable. It should never have occurred. It resulted from the failure of a company to take the necessary steps to avert a preventable fire and explosion, and from the inability of federal, state, and local regulatory agencies to identify a serious hazard and correct it. Every word of that statement, on the public record, every word, a finding from a 3-year investigation, every word, true. There is one dimension of the West Texas story that adds another layer of tragedy and complexity. In May 2016, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives announced that its investigation had concluded the fire at West Fertilizer was deliberately set. Arson. Someone intentionally started the fire that led to the explosion that killed 15 people and injured 260 more, and destroyed a community. However, as of the date of this documentary, no arrests have been made. No one has been charged. The person or persons who may have set the fire remain unidentified and unprosecuted. This finding has been disputed. The ATF's conclusion of deliberate fire setting is based on the elimination of accidental and natural causes, not on the identification of a specific suspect or a specific mechanism. But here is the critical point that the investigation makes regardless of the fire's origin. The explosion would not have been survivable for the emergency responders, whether the fire was deliberately set or accidentally ignited. The problem was not the fire's origin. The problem was the ammonium nitrate that the fire found. The problem was the absence of sprinklers, the combustible storage, the regulatory gaps, and the information vacuum that left 10 emergency responders at the scene of an explosion they had no way to anticipate. Whether or not someone set that fire deliberately, the system had the same catastrophic gaps. The outcome would have been the same. The question this documentary has been building toward: why does this keep happening? The answer is not simple, but it is documented. The regulation of ammonium nitrate in the United States is a patchwork, different agencies covering different aspects with gaps between them that allow facilities to exist without comprehensive oversight. OSHA regulates worker safety in facilities, but its inspection frequency for small agricultural supply facilities can be measured in decades, not years. The West Fertilizer Plant, 28 years between OSHA inspections. The EPA's Process Safety Management and Risk Management Program, the program specifically designed to prevent exactly these kinds of industrial explosions, exclude ammonium nitrate by name specifically. The chemical that has been at the center of industrial disasters for 100 years is excluded from the specific federal programs designed to prevent industrial disasters. The Department of Homeland Security requires notification when facilities store more than a ton of ammonium nitrate. The requirement is self-reported. The enforcement, inadequate. West Fertilizer stored 40 to 60 tons. DHS was not notified. And the local fire department, the first line of actual emergency response, has no legal mechanism requiring facilities to share their hazardous material inventory. Each agency regulates a piece. No agency regulates the whole, and in the gaps between the pieces, people die. We have spent this documentary on systems, on regulations, on investigative findings and regulatory gaps. Now we need to stop and say something else. The men who died in Texas City in 1947 were not professionals in the modern sense. They were volunteers, men who had day jobs and served their community's fire department because someone had to. They responded to the call as they were supposed to. They advanced as they were trained. They died doing everything right in a situation that the system had made lethal. The men who died in West Texas in 2013 were not naive. They were trained firefighters and emergency responders. They knew fire. They knew the risks of their chosen service. What they did not know, what no one required anyone to tell them, was the specific explosive risk waiting in the building they were attacking. Jerry Chapman drove to a neighboring town's fire because someone needed help. He didn't ask if it was in his jurisdiction. He didn't wait for official authorization. He saw a community that needed firefighters. He went. That is not unusual in the volunteer fire service. That is normal. That is what they do. That is what they have always done. And the systems that are supposed to protect them, the regulatory systems, the hazard communication systems, the pre-incident planning systems, failed them. The bravery of these men is not in question. What is in question is the system that sent brave men into a situation they did not have the information to survive. On August 4, 2020, the port of Beirut, Lebanon, exploded. 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, improperly stored in a port warehouse for 6 years, detonated in one of the largest non-nuclear explosions in recorded history. 218 people were killed, more than 7,000 were injured. Entire neighborhoods of Beirut were destroyed. The explosion was visible from Cyprus, 150 miles away. The ammonium nitrate had been confiscated from an abandoned cargo ship in 2013, the same year as West Texas. It had been sitting in warehouse 12 of the Beirut port for 6 years. Multiple officials in Lebanon knew it was there. Multiple warnings had been sent about its danger. Nothing was done. First responders, Lebanese firefighters, arrived at what appeared to be a warehouse fire and began fighting it. The explosion killed 8 of them. This is not a Lebanese failure. It is a human, institutional failure, the same one that produced Texas City, that produced West Texas, that has produced ammonium nitrate disasters for 100 years. The failure of institutions to treat a known hazard with the seriousness that its explosive potential demands. Ammonium nitrate does not become less dangerous because it is labeled fertilizer. It does not become less explosive because it has been sitting quietly for years. It does not become safer because the people storing it have grown comfortable with its presence. The physics do not negotiate, the chemistry does not make exceptions. And the institutional failures that allow dangerous materials to accumulate near people who do not know the risk. They are human failures. They can be fixed. This section of the documentary is specifically for firefighters and emergency responders because the burning oath exists to give the fire service the information it needs. If you respond to a fire at or near an agricultural supply facility, a warehouse, a port facility, or any location where ammonium nitrate might be stored, here is what the investigations of Texas City and West Texas have documented. First, ammonium nitrate fires require defensive operations, not interior attack. Defensive positioning only. Ammonium nitrate can detonate with no additional warning beyond the fire itself. The Texas City firefighters had no warning. The West Texas firefighters had no warning. You will not reliably get a warning either. Second, establish a large perimeter. The West Texas explosion destroyed buildings hundreds of feet from the storage building. The Texas City explosion killed people a football field away from the ship's hull. Small ammonium nitrate quantities, 40 to 60 tons, produce explosions equivalent to multiple tons of TNT. The safe distance is larger than instinct suggests. Third, know your facilities before you respond. Pre-incident planning is the most important operational tool available to any department. If you know there is ammonium nitrate in a building before you respond, you can respond appropriately. If you don't know until you're there, you are in the same position as the firefighters of Texas City and West Texas. Fourth, request hazmat resources early. Ammonium nitrate fires require hazmat expertise. Request it before you need it. Let's put the full accounting on the table. Texas City, April 16th to 17th, 1947. At least 581 dead. All 28 members of the Texas City Volunteer Fire Department. 3 members of the Republic Oil Refinery Fire Brigade. 145 workers at the Monsanto plant. Hundreds of civilians, including dozens of children who had gone to the dock to watch an interesting fire. 4,000 injured, 4 fire trucks destroyed, the entire fire department of Texas City eliminated. The cause, 2,300 tons of ammonium nitrate, inadequately understood, in a port with no disaster plan, responded to by firefighters who did not know what they were fighting. West Texas, April 17th, 2013, 15 dead. 10 emergency responders, including 8 volunteer firefighters from multiple departments. 2 civilians killed in the adjacent apartment complex and nursing home. More than 260 injured, 2 schools destroyed, an apartment complex destroyed, a nursing home heavily damaged, more than 150 buildings affected. The cause? 40 to 60 tons of ammonium nitrate inadequately stored in a facility with no sprinklers, unnoticed by regulators, responded to by firefighters who did not know what they were fighting. The same cause, 66 years apart, the same information gap, the same regulatory failure, the same preventable outcome. Between them, Kansas City, 1988, 6 firefighters dead, the same lesson, the same gap. The pattern is not complicated, it is only devastating. The Texas City Volunteer Fire Department had 28 members in 1947. On April 16th of that year, all 28 of them responded to the Grandcamp fire. All 28 of them died. The department was rebuilt, new members, new equipment. The community didn't stop having a fire department because its first fire department was destroyed. They rebuilt it. The West Fertilizer Company filed for bankruptcy after the explosion. The community of West Texas, a Czech-American farming community of 2,800 people, began the long process of rebuilding its schools, its apartment complex, its nursing home, its sense of safety. Both communities carried their dead forward, and the fire service, carrying 28 names from Texas City and 10 names from West Texas, continued doing what it has always done, going when called, advancing toward danger, trusting that the systems around them had given them what they needed to survive. The systems have not always kept that trust. Texas City proved it. West Texas proved it. The fire service deserves better. The communities they protect deserve better. The regulatory framework that governs industrial chemicals in this country deserves and demands to be made adequate to the risk that it has always been asked to manage. The explosion nobody saw coming? That is only true if you weren't looking. The warnings have been there for 100 years. The chemistry has been documented. The pattern has been identified. What has been missing is the institutional will to close the gap before the next call. If you are a firefighter or emergency responder watching this, 3 things. 1. Know your facilities. Do you know every significant ammonium nitrate storage location in your response area? If not, find out. Visit the facilities. Ask what is stored there. Build the pre-incident plan. 2. Build the protocol. If you respond to a fire at an ammonium nitrate storage facility, defensive operations, large perimeter, no interior attack, evacuate, hazmat resources early. 3. Share this information. Every firefighter in your department should know the operational lessons of Texas City and West Texas. The CSB's Dangerously Close video is free, publicly available, and specifically designed for fire service training. Show it at your next training session. The firefighters of Texas City and West Texas were not told what they needed to survive. You are being told. Do something with it. This has been The Burning Oath, the channel that never looks away from the fire, from the history, from the hard questions about the systems that are supposed to protect the people who protect everyone else. If this documentary made you angry, good, use it. If this documentary gave you information you didn't have before, use that too. Share this video, because the 1,351 facilities storing ammonium nitrate in America are not only in rural Texas, they are in communities across every agricultural state in this country, and the volunteer fire departments that would respond to those facilities deserve to have this information. Subscribe to The Burning Oath, new documentaries every week, the fire service stories that need to be told. And to the families of the Texas City firefighters and the families of the West Texas responders, We see
2
your
memorials,
people. We know
2
their
communities,
names. We know what
1
they were
lesson.
owed and did not receive.
2
This
memorials,
documentary
2
exists
communities,
because of them.
1 lesson.
The changes that need to happen
2 memorials,
exist because
2
of them.
communities, 1 lesson.
The oath isn't just taken once, it is kept every single shift by the people who go when called, who advance toward what everyone else runs from, who deserve, at minimum, to know what they are advancing toward. Close the gap before the next call.